Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. If you haven't had your coffee, you haven't had your tea, bologna sandwiches, whatever whatever makes you happy, we're here today again. I'm Reverend Dr. Barry Staples, and welcome again to Race and Cultures Bridging the Divides. Oh boy, I'm so excited today. A lot of things are going on, and this is going to be kind of like a second aspect. We talked last week, last episode, about compassion and what's missing in this world is a lot of compassion and love. And, each time I start off, I'm always wanting to start off with scriptures, but up in the corner there, you see that code there. That's a donation code. No, we're nonprofit. So if you scan that, you can always donate to Race and Cultures, Bridging the Divides. And also, please like and subscribe. Uh, Even if you don't like it, don't like it, subscribe anyway. If you want to subscribe, you're going to like it. It works both ways. With no further ado, we always talk. Last week, Reverend Staples, my wife Jennifer, was here with me, and we talked a lot about needing to have faith. I'm a Christian. It doesn't matter what faith you belong to, as long as it's about love and compassion. And the church will say amen. Okay, so I want to bring up something. This is a repeat from our last episode. These two scriptures from Matthew and Second Peter, second chapter, first to third verse. The number one is missing. But what we're dealing with right now in our culture, we're dealing with people that want to exalt themselves. Some people already humble, but Matthew says, "Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." So, in other words, don't get all braggadocious. Don't think that you're better than somebody else. Those people that are just glad to be helpful and glad to be a servant to someone without bragging about it, then they will receive many rewards. But this is more important too in the second uh, translation here. In the first one's from New King James, and here's the New International Version. Second Peter, this is so important. We have people out there talking about they know things and they're doing things righteously. But listen to what it says here. But there are also false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. Don't fall for the okey doke. And they will secretly introduce destructive heresies. For example, we got to blow up all of Iran because I'm going to tell you that there's missiles there. Destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. So, in other words, whatever people are doing, their day is coming. You can't go around hurting people and think that something's not going to happen to you. And also continues, says, many will follow their depraved conduct and will bring the way of truth into disrepute. In other words, people telling lies and making up stuff all the time. We call that, just misleading people. And finally, in the third verse says, in their greed, these teachers will exploit you with fabricated stories. Well, we have to bum them. But remember, I shared with you that the whole situation that happened in Venezuela is about oil. Don't get it twisted. It's about oil now in Iran. We have a president that I call not president, but his whole family, he's already profited at 1.3 or 1.6 billion dollars, give or take, 300 million or so. But since he's been in office, the emoluments clause should be checked out here. Then finally, it says their condemnation has long been hanging over them, and their destruction has not been sleeping. In other words, his time is coming. He can't keep doing these things to people and getting away with it. But we have people that are in office that are letting it slide. So you may ask me, how did I come about believing in all these things about compassion? Well, I'm going to share with you that it comes from this person here. these two people. Okay, my family, I've talked about them before, are the Staple Singer. This is Pops, Roebuck Pop Staples, and with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Uh, my cousins, what they would sing as Dr. King would preach, they were very good friends. Um, he was very good friends with my dad. He gave my dad a portrait, and at the bottom here, Dr. King always called Pops, uh, bruh Staples. And at the bottom here is "Why Am I Treated So Bad?" That's a song by the Staple Singers. The day or the evening before Dr. King was assassinated, my cousin Pops was doing a show in the Lorraine Hotel, and he knew Pops was there, and he came over and came down and from the stairway and said, "Bruh Staples, play my favorite song." My cousin said, "Which one is that?" He says, "Why Am I Treated So Bad?" The next day, Dr. King was shot and taken away. The drummer was gone. The drummer was gone. So that's where I learned a lot about compassion as a very young child and even growing up. Pops would always tell me, he would say, he said, "Cuz, never let anybody steal your dream." He even had that on his back then was an answering machine. We didn't have cell phones, but he would always say, "Don't let anyone ever steal your dreams." He and my dad talked to me a lot about growing up in Jim Crow, Mississippi, and even they kept their dreams alive to make it better, and they all moved up north. So that's how I started learning about compassion, was through my cousin Pop Staples and the Staple Singers. And so this is Pops and me at his house. And that's my daughter Tori when she was 2 years old. So he always would call the house and ask me, "How's my baby?" No matter how old she got to be. I think when Pops passed away, Tori was about thir- tw- excuse me, 12 or 13 years old. I'm getting and talking too fast here. But you can see here, that's one of Pop's Grammys. And then the right corner here going up, you can see Mavis, and there's a album. Actually Have a Little Faith. That's actually her first album she did with Prince when she started recording again. And in this picture here that was taken by my daughter's mother in the foreground, Tori locked herself in the bathroom and was screaming, and Pops went in and got a ice pick. It was one of those doors that didn't have like a regular keyhole with the round hole in it. Pops opened up the door and she ran out, jumped in my lap. Pop grabbed his guitar, which is one of my favorite guitars. I love that guitar, and started strumming this song with the guitar and got her calmed down. But that's my cousin Pops, and I miss him, and God bless you, Pops. But he always taught me to care about other people along with my father. So that's my first influence about compassion. Compassion was from those people, and also, growing up with Dr. King in my background, also with Pops. And then there's other people that were part of my life. So part of it started at this place here. We were at, I'm gonna just show this here. This here is Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church. We used to call it the Ship. Now, when I was growing up, it didn't look like this. Our choir would sing there from St. Bethel Baptist with Reverend Rice and Reverend Hinkle, and Reverend Clay Evans was the pastor there. And this was my first introduction. Um, Operation Breadbasket. We would meet there with Reverend Clay Evans Church, and it was the building that looked like that. I wish I had a picture to show you how it looked. It was smaller, and it didn't have all that structure. It's over in 46 in South Princeton, 4534, 4543 South Princeton in Chicago. And we had as Pops would say, we had a time. We would sing, we had church all day and all night singing, but it was great. With Pastor Evans and his choir, we would always his choir was amazing. So I can go on, but that's where I first started going to Operation Breadbasket, was right there in that church with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Clay Evans. And so people don't know a lot about Operation Breadbasket, but this is kind of a little snippet of Operation Breadbasket. Start, deeply linked through the '66 Chicago Freedom Movement. My family would do the freedom songs, and so here we had the operations that took place in Clay Evans Church, friendly base of operations, and then also the key people that were just part of it. Dr. King, he even moved to Chicago, and he had an apartment on the west side. So Reverend Jackson, Reverend Clay Evans, they were the people that were pushing us. And I remember Jesse always telling us, he would ask you like, "How you doing today?" And he would say, "How you doing?" Of course, we were always kind of shy. Now Jesse was kind of a big guy. He was a football quarterback, and he had, he was a really nice guy. He's very good friends with my family, but he was at the ship and doing Operation Breadbasket. And so Jesse, he was extremely instrumental in my life with Operation Breadbasket. It's a grassroots. We need more of those kind of programs. But here's a picture of Jesse. He just passed away, and I talked last week about how my cousin, she actually sang at his. Here's the Reverend Clay Evans. Now, Reverend Clay Evans, we could say he could blow. He sang. Ironically, I always used to tease him. I said, "You sure you're not my brother? Because my birthday is on June 22nd. His is on the 23rd." I used to joke with him. Yeah, he always thought it was funny. He told me that, "You think you're a comedian, don't you?" And then he would laugh. Anyway, that's Reverend Evans. I miss him tremendously. Incredible person. So that's how I learned about compassion from these gentlemen, from all these gentlemen. So what do we need to do? What do we need to do? We have a person, and this is his in the White House. This is what he says, what he wants to do to America.
Announcing the commencement of the annual purge.
What the hell is going on?
And he cusses a
See, we
president.
have to let the police do their job. And if they have to be extraordinarily rough,
No compassion
the police
for
want to do
people
it. The Border Patrol wants to do it.
trying to militarize this country.
If you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day with the drugstores as an example. Now, if you had one really violent day.
At the siren, all crime will be legal for 12 hours.
One rough hour.
My
And I mean
goodness.
real rough.
Listen to the end.
The word will get out, and it will end immediately.
I purged to keep my country great.
Isn't this something? So we commit violence or we purge people. We commit violence against other people. Last week's episode, I showed you the episode where he's talking about we'll just kill them. We'll just kill them. Now we can have all kind of theories right now. What really happened to Jeffrey Epstein? I'm talking to you right now about distractions that are going on. I mentioned Iran killing all the people in Iran. And to bring it even home from here, this is what's really going on in our country. We can't forget these people. So we talk about Renee Good. We talk about Alex Pretty, but there's two other people. They just happen to be Black. Now, I don't use the term African American, and I love everybody no matter what. I just wish we can just be called, Billy Bob, whatever your name is, and forget about it. But people want to categorize and put people into certain groups. And a lot of that reason goes all the way back to slavery in this country to categorize people. But look at this here. ICE agents are responsible for the death of these 4 American citizens. Plus 40 plus other immigrants that we know of. There's been no arrests, no apologies, no accountability. You can apply that to the Epstein files. Keith Porter, and I have a little clip here. Keith Porter went out on New Year's Eve. As customary in a lot of places, kind of in my neighborhood when I was growing up. People go out, my uncles go out, they shoot their gun in the air and say, Happy New Year. Keith Porter went out and did that. His fiance had gone to the store and picked up some New Year's victuals that they were going to celebrate. I think it was some wings and all of that stuff. And she kept calling and was wondering what was happening. She drove back to their apartment complex and police sirens. What happened was a nice off-duty ICE agent decided he heard gunshot go off in the air. Instead of calling the local police in LA, he goes out, puts on his ICE stuff off duty. Wasn't supposed to be doing anything but relaxing on New Year's Eve. He goes out and sees Keith Porter and decides to kill him, shoot him. I'm sure Keith Porter was saying, no, this is what I do. I'm celebrating, blah, blah. Shot dead New Year's Eve. We know the story of Renee Good, dropped her kid off, went off, driving away, moving away from the ICE agent there, moving to the other side, and even said to him, I'm not mad at you. So what does he do? Goes around, positions himself in the side and in the front of her vehicle and shoots her dead. Alex Prater, you know the story. He had helped a woman that had been pushed down by ICE, and they came at him. He's videotaping him with his phone. They grab him, throw him on the ground, and decides to shoot him. He was legally carrying, but he didn't pull the gun out. They pulled the gun out and took his gun, then decided to shoot him 10 or 12 times. And tragically, Dr. Linda Davis, matter of fact, she was in the same school where I finished my doctorate in theology. One of the places I went, I also had an advanced biblical studies degree too. But she was hit by, it was actually an ICE agent's fault. He was on the pursuit of a person, was speeding, and she was getting to her car, and the person hit her because the ICE agent was pursuing illegally. There's a law against high-speed chases. These people are dead. Where's the compassion? Arrests, apologies, accountability will show that you have compassion. So these are some examples of things that bother me, but I grew up listening to people talk about compassion. And I want to share with you what Jesse used to do, how he motivated us. So I want you to listen to the words he said. They still echo my head all the time.
I am somebody. I am somebody. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. I am somebody. Nobody will save us from us, for us, but us. I may be unskilled.
I want to clarify something. When Jesse was with Operation Breadbasket, then Push People United Save Humanity, the name became, you can see here it's a very diverse group. But during the times when Jesse was working with us, the young folks, he was, it was predominantly Black kids on the south side of Chicago. His message, as you can see by this crowd, reached all diversities of people. And Jesse had a lot of diversity. One of the chaplains I used to work with, who was a white guy, he used to tell me how he and Jesse played together in Greenfield, Carolina, where Jesse lived. They were next door neighbors. You can see it by my cup here. Oh. This is woke. Yes, I'm very woke. What is woke? A badge of honor, knowledge, and wisdom to have or be marked by an active awareness of systemic injustices and prejudices, racism, especially those related to civil and human rights. And third of all, woke means to be wise, open-minded, and also empathetic. And that's not a new age term. But most important, woke means to be not asleep. So Jesse was woke a long time ago, and he worked with us in the community, and he took his message across this nation and across the world. That is compassion.
I am somebody. In my mind can conceive it, and my heart can believe it. I know I can achieve it. I am somebody.
I am somebody.
I am God's child. Red and yellow, black and
Black and
white.
white.
We're all precious in God's
You heard what he said, diversity.
Stand up. Push on. Stand up. Push on. What time is it?
Nation time.
What time is it? What time is it?
I miss him. That's Jesse. I was just talking to my cousin the other day. He has an organization. He still works with Operation Push up in Chicago. And we talked about how good of a friend that Jesse was with our family. So Jesse had a lot of great things that he did. But this here message that he gave is one that other people have never heard before. But he always pushed for excellence. Always pushed for
Los
excellence.
Angeles Board of Education that they asked him to supervise a $400,000 self-help program for black schoolchildren. And Jackson hopes the concept will spread to other cities. The idea is to build confidence, starting with even the smallest children.
As we go through the program today, this may fit a young man that's going to be a guest for us, dealing with the population he's dealing with. But this is
He
amazing.
carries that same message to predominantly black high schools
I
in Los
can learn
Angeles.
anything.
Down with dope. Up with hope. Nobody will save us from us, for us, but us. Right on.
That's back in the day, right on.
You know, I look at a lot of these theories that a lot of the social workers come up with, and they say, now the reason a Negro can't learn, say his dad is gone, and his mama is pitiful, and he doesn't understand anything about education, and not much food in his refrigerator, and there's rats all in the house, and that's the reason he can't learn.
But listen to the words of compassion.
And so we read all that mess, and then we come to school, and a group of black folk come to the classroom, and the teacher said they're feeling guilty. I said, well, these poor, old, pitiful Negroes, say, they got all these heartaches and trials and tribulations, and they're so pitiful, and now I got to stand up here and try to teach them how to read and write and count. If we can run faster and jump higher and shoot a basketball straight off of inadequate diets, then we can read and write and count and think off of those same diets. All that can happen.
And that's what kept me
Another challenge is
motivated.
upward mobility, and that is why the focus on not only getting in school, but producing in school becomes a new kind of challenge. In other words, we can get into the new school by law, but to become doctor, lawyer, engineer will require intense effort.
And that's what kept me motivated. That compassion that he shared with me was so important. And I want to just say to you, it starts in the community. It starts in the community where we have to go outside of ourselves like Jesse did. Well, I love being around all those people, Pastor Evans and Jesse, even Stokely Carmen. I can go on and on. Malcolm was up there in Chicago a lot of times. I grew up around these people. They inspired me. They showed me compassion. I wasn't always a doctor. I wasn't always a preacher. And by the grace of God and by all those people that helped me, it kept me away from getting involved with Lloyd's gang and Jeff Ford's gang, but kept me straight. So how does this relate to compassion? Well, right here locally, I want to share this clip and then invite this guest in to share with you more of his insight.
Myers are finding themselves caught in the middle of politically
It's in
charged
Fort Myers,
conversations.
Florida.
I'm your Fort Myers community correspondent, Miyoshi
Oh,
Price,
we can
and I
all
went
read
to the
that.
Quality Life Center and listened to students with opposing perspectives discussing topics like ICE, protests, and police interaction we have seen on television and social media. At the Quality Life Center in Fort Myers, young people are having conversations that many adults struggle with: ICE enforcement and protests at schools.
The conversation that's pressing, everyone's having it at some point or another.
Executive Director Julian Ramirez started the conversation with the Renee Good case. Ramirez used news clips and audio to show different perspectives.
This
Kendra
always
Calloway
reminds
was
me
one of the
of
participants.
Operation
I think
Breadbasket.
it's important for young people to have a place where they could speak their mind and like talk about things that affects us, because a lot of times we aren't put into consideration.
But hearing opposing views wasn't easy.
At first, I was like in disbelief as like somebody who was a person of color to say that, but it did like bring a new idea to perspective.
Kenneth Hicks also participated in the discussion.
It really opened my eyes to how everybody doesn't think the same. Like there was one guy here who gave his opinion that was the complete opposite of mine.
The conversation also touched on student protest.
Almost half of the young people thought that the school did have a responsibility to keep the children safe, and that the school did have a responsibility to keep the children from protesting. And about a little bit more than half thought that they didn't.
Ramirez says the key to difficult conversations is creating a safe space.
When opposing opinions came up, my goal was to be able to like calm down the audience so that person has an opportunity to express themselves.
For parents wanting to have these conversations at home, Ramirez has simple advice.
I think that the easy way to start is to listen. Don't approach the conversation with trying to change them, trying to enlighten them.
The students say they learned the importance of respectful dialogue. The Quality Life Center plans to hold these conversations monthly. In Fort Myers, Miyoshi Price, Fox 4.
My goodness, we have some good things happening out there. Good things happening out there. I tell you, I just don't know what to do sometimes when I think about this young man here. We do know that he puts his heart and soul into everything. And with no further ado, we're going to welcome to our stage. Mr. Julian Ramirez, with your guest on the screen. Good afternoon, my brother.
Good afternoon to you, brother. So good to see you. I've been listening to the show. It's amazing. I look forward to jumping in. There's so much that's been said, so many ways to take this.
Yes, sir. And we can start anywhere you want. You know, I felt that I had to share with you the background that I came from with Operation Breadbasket. And when I think about, and I've always felt your program reminds me so much of that time in my life when it was so important. So I'd just like to jump in. Can you share with the audience, Mr. Ramirez, a little bit about your background, what you do, what you don't want to do, what you think about doing, what you did, what you didn't want to do, what was wrong that you wanted to make right, all that stuff.
So I'll give you the short version so that we could have a conversation. Otherwise, I'll sit here and talk for hours straight.
That's
about
all right.
all of those things you talked about. I'm so excited to be here. I want to say it again. I think that we're so like-minded in so many different ways. We have interest on a lot of the same topics, especially this one, compassion and love. So I want to start by saying my name is Julian Ramirez. I'm the executive director at the Quality Life Center. We're located in Southwest Florida, Fort Myers to be specific, at the Dunbar, in the Dunbar community. The organization has been around over 35 years. It was founded by Abdul Haq Muhammad from Harlem, New York. He moved to Fort Myers, Florida, and he took responsibility for making the community a better place. That's what we're doing here. That's what I'm about. I'm here to promote service, and I'm here to highlight, just like you were highlighting, these influential people that have shaped the way you look at the world in terms of compassion and love. I see the same with Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad left the corporate world, so to speak. He was in in imports and exports, and he came to do service, to work with people. Now, he had been doing that in New York as well. The people always called. So that's what we're doing here at the Quality Life Center. I'm continuing the institution that he's built here. It's a community-based organization. The vision is personal and community transformation. And we do that through the programs that we have. Primarily, it's been after-school programming and summer camp programming with adult programming. Now we have a private school, so we have programming all day long, and we have programs for all ages. We have a strong teen program, teen leadership program. At the moment, we have over 80 teens that are going through a process where they're preparing to lead summer camp. You know, they're working alongside the program, getting us going with summer camp. And we're here trying to do God's work, which is, you know, work with these young people to prepare them to have a quality life when they get older.
You know, like you heard Jesse say that, you know, we all are together, God's children we love in his sight. And I like how you said that. Can you let the audience know a little bit? You mentioned this Dunbar, you know, district. You know, I'm in Chicago. Dunbar was our high school that's named after, you know, a famous person. You know, it was actually the first school that helped Black folk in Dunbar High School. And actually, I was supposed to go to Dunbar. Then my dad moved, and I ended up going to another school. But this Dunbar district, what is that?
So the Dunbar community is a historically Black community here in Fort Myers, Florida. It's about a mile from downtown, and it's a relatively small community, but it's the historically Black community of this area.
Okay, historically Black. So, you know, I started off similar to what Jesse, you know, started off, you know, because around the neighborhood, especially on 45th and Princeton, and I used to live at 45th and Prairie a little bit and around that area. And so by being a predominantly Black community, and I know about Quality Life Center, that it's not just focused on Black folks, right?
No, it's not. I mean, we're open to everyone. However, by nature, by being in the Dunbar community, we serve the community, which is predominantly a Black community.
Okay, great. And so how did you get involved with this kind of mission and ministry, so to speak? You know, here you are, Julian Ramirez, and you got Quality Life Center, and you mentioned these programs that I'd really like for you to share more, because it seemed like you really put a lot of emphasis on education. So how did you get wanting to do this kind of stuff?
All right. So I won't go all the way back to my childhood, although I guess I'll give a quick shout out to that. I grew up in a Christian home. So I, you know, learned a lot of Christian values growing up.
Right.
Saw it modeled in my mother. You know, my house was the house where whenever there was a gathering or any church event, it'd be hosted at my house. If there was a family that was coming through for one reason or another, they'll come to my house. We've had many families that immigrated from other countries come through my house. My mom was that person like that. You know, she was like, it was like a matriarchal kind of family.
So compassion, you had the same kind of thing. You learned compassion growing up from your mother, it sounds like.
Yes, I definitely learned compassion from my mother. Yes.
Wow. And you put that in your heart, and then you kept growing up. And now, you know, you have a unique name. You know, I mentioned how people are categorized. So you have a very romantic name. People would say Julian. Oh my goodness, Julian. Then Ramirez. And so you have a name that people may connect you as being, they start categorizing you by your name, right?
Right.
That's what they do in this country. So how did you deal with growing up with a name like Julian Ramirez?
Okay, so I guess I'll start by saying where it comes from. So my family is from the Caribbean. My mother and my father are both from the Dominican Republic. My mother moved to the United States. That's where she met my father. And I was born in Harlem, New York.
Oh my.
Julian is my uncle's name. That was my mom's brother, who was her very beloved brother,
Right.
who eventually died of HIV. He got caught up
Oh.
during the HIV epidemic, and that was an experience that I was very young when we went through that. I couldn't grasp it, but when I became an adult, I was motivated to do some work in that area. So for some years, I worked with an AIDS service organization, doing HIV work, STDs, etc. Inspired by that connection with my uncle who passed from that. But yeah, so I eventually went through a program called Youth Build, and when I went to that program, Youth Build, that's what gave me my desire for service, service to the community. And when I went to Youth Build, I actually went to Youth Build in Tennessee, not in Rhode Island. I was born in Harlem, New York, moved to Rhode Island, grew up in Rhode Island, grew up in a Black and Latino community. Then I moved to Tennessee, which was a predominantly white community with white and Black community. And that's where I wasn't that, what's a Dominican, that where in Mexico is Dominican, are you from? That the level, there was a low awareness of what Caribbean people were in the part of the Tennessee where I was at. But it caused me to go through an identity crisis because I gained a perspective that I hadn't seen. I have always identified as Black. Not even, I know that my family is Spanish speaking or Latino, and I know I'm from the Dominican Republic, but I identified as Black. And now as I've gone through life, I've seen that the definition of Black is something that's been socially constructed that's become very challenging for us to understand, because then when are you Black enough? Because in some communities, I'm not Black enough. In the Dominican Republic, I'm not Dominican enough.
Well, right. So. And like you look at both of us, and I've used this example to the audience about the term Black. You look at my shirt and it's Black, and I don't think either one of us are that color. Then you look at the lettering on my shirt, that's white. So we know we're not that color. So it's a misnomer to me, but yet it's a categorization again, what people do in this country. And you kind of jumped ahead on something that's been a social process that if you got a little melanin in your system, and if anybody in your family, like you mentioned Dominican, you mentioned, people, white people, like some people, they have one parent that may be, I just put it this way, Black, and the other one's white. So what happens is the one drop rule. They're all called Black to dishonor the other parent. For example, President Obama, they call him the first Black president. Well, the problem with that is President Obama's father was from Kenya, Africa, and his mother was from the land of Dorothy and Toto in Kansas, Auntie Mame and all that. She was white, but they call him the first Black president. And I don't use the term African American, but for him, it fits. He's African. His father was from Africa. His mother from America. African American. He's Black. So in your case, you seem like you mentioned the term identity. You have to deal with some identity issues coming from Harlem.
Check it out. The terms don't fit. What's a Latino?
Oh,
from Latin, from the language, like Latin and Italian, like what's a Hispanic? Is that another way of saying Brit? Is that another way of saying Britannic? Like like identified by who colonized the country, like a Hispanic, So what these terms, like how do you connect to these terms?
It makes no sense, does it? It's not rational.
Well, I understand why it makes sense to some people, because you can use that as a tool to be able to divide, as a tool to divide.
Okay, and we see that, and we're seeing that right now, as I mentioned, Renee Good and Keith Porter and Dr. Linda Davis and Alex Preddy. The whole thing that was going on with ICE, it was the division. We're going to go all Black people and brown people, or people who had an accent, and we're just going to go after them. That's Stephen Miller's agenda. to round up because all these people are criminals. You know,
So to bring it to the point of this whole podcast, you know, we talking here about compassion and love, and then I saw what you were laying out. It sounds like these are people that are being powered by fear,
there you go. Yes,
and
very good.
they're being motivated by fear. They have a sense of scarcity that causes them to think there's not enough for us to share, enough to go around. So then you hoard, or you segregate, you separate, and that's not compassion. And I definitely am here to organize myself and others to be able to be compassionate to those that the system is not working for.
Yeah, and your one student said, I can't think of his name, but it was interesting how he said he talked to someone who had a different opinion than his. And he didn't get to go into detail about that because what we're talking about how do we bridge the gap, so to speak, because a culture is basically people that are involved in the environment, sharing, trying to share the same beliefs or similar beliefs or different beliefs, but still coming together using compassion to make this a very positive culture. However, your student said that was in the group that you had that someone had a different opinion than theirs. So, how do you have compassion for someone who says something different than what you know is to be true?
Yeah, so I think I'll start by saying it is definitely easy to have compassion for people that you love, right? The people that are closest to you. That's easy to have compassion. I'm not saying that you may still not experience frustration or other emotions, you know, if you're having challenging moments with friends or family, but it's easier to have compassion for the people within your circle, for the people within your sphere. I think it becomes harder to have compassion for those outside of your sphere. Now, there's levels to that. For instance, there are people that are not in your sphere that have no problem with you. But then there are people that may be out of your sphere that have a problem with you just for existing. And I think this is where the concern comes with the culture of this country historically. Historically, this country has had a lot of influences regarding race and racism and slavery. So that has set us up to be in a very challenging position where there are people that have already been harmed. And now we're asking for a truce, right, of some sort, where we want peace, we want compassion from everyone, but there's already been a hurt that has taken place. And like you said with the poster you put up, no arrest, no apologies. Well, when it comes to the history of this country, what's happening now where we're trying to erase history doesn't work to be able to remedy or fix what happened so that we can live in a more compassionate world. So we have to be able to reconcile the harms we did in the past, you know, say, okay, we take responsibility for what the country did to Black people in this country and what they're doing to foreigners in this country right now, taking responsibility from that, and then being able to move forward from the best foot forward.
Okay,
Now,
I like what you're saying. You know, some people may say that's idealistic for us to do that, but we have people right now in this administration that are in power, and they're operating from, you know, a lot of people haven't read it. I have all 930 pages of the Project 2025, which, you know, is a deliberate attempt to dehumanize, disenfranchise certain groups of people to make this country to come under a false doctrine that they're using of Christian nationalism that has nothing to do with what you grew up in a Christian home and you understood the New King James, the King James Bible, and it's nothing that I studied or learned about when I was growing up, but that's what they're framing to create this division, to not have compassion for people. And we have Stephen Miller, who is actually, I get, you know, the White House chief of staff person, who's actually Jewish, but he promotes Nazi agenda and everything that's happening right now. And you know what happened in Nazi Germany. So they try to infuse all this. So we try to carry a great face every day, knowing that I could be in my car, and because of the way I look, and if I look sideways, I might get pulled over. This policeman looks at me and has no compassion because of the way I look. So I'm trying to think, how do I deal with that?
Yeah, so that we're all in this boat, so to speak, where all we have is each other. I'm not a political pundit. I don't.
Exactly.
I try to stay away from the details because that's not my lane of work.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the people that do it because someone has to keep an eye on what's happening in the political sphere because it has such a big impact
Very good.
to the everyday person.
I'm glad you said that because I know for a fact that when we talk about race and culture and politics and religion, all of that stuff kind of overlaps with one another. So we have to make a decision. Now, I don't like dealing with politics, but I do know how it's affecting people's lives, and because of the poor legislation or no legislation, like the what I showed with no accountability, no arrest, and all that. That is not what should be happening. If you do a crime, you got to do the time, so to speak. And none of that is happening right now. We have people that are afraid to go to school. People, black and brown people. I just break it down. So I like what you said. We can try not to be political, but it still impacts everything we try to do just to live.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just choosing not to focus on it because it's not my lane. I like to look at the world that it could be offense or defense, and I'm playing offense. And when I think of offense, I'm working with children to build the future. Like there's all this evil that's happening that I have no control over, but I have control over the community of people that I serve, and that's me focusing on the future.
I like what you say about community. And my position is very simple. I can't do anything that they're doing politically in DC. My thing is do at a community level, at a micro level, try as best we can, just like we did Operation Breadbasket. We try to deal with the community, help people feel positive about what they can do. They can get jobs. Jesse went after companies, Coca-Cola and all those companies, to empower them to hire people, to do things, to uplift people from a micro level. And I really feel like I'm in agreement with you. The political arena can tear us all down because we don't see compassion too many times coming from politics. There's some good politicians I think are trying to have compassion for people. I see a group of people that have been elected recently that are very good people that have grown up living compassionately toward other people. Hopefully they can maintain that as they go into their office. But like what you're doing at the Quality Life Center is a good model, especially because of the education component. And like what you said, working with the kids and creating that positive image for the Dunbar district. It's beautiful. I'm so impressed.
What I want to add is that I don't want to minimize the impact of politics. I guess I want to maybe focus on democracy. I strongly believe that we need to maintain a strong democracy.
There you go.
I think that our Constitution is very important. I think that we need to learn we need to teach and work with young people so that they can become civically engaged. But I also want to recognize that our political system is very influenced by our financial industrial complex and our military industrial complex. And that influence is so powerful that the people need to be able to be organized to make sure that the financial industrial complex and the military industrial complex isn't serving itself rather than serving the people. And those two systems are married and they work together. And you can almost say against the interest of the people, because the people don't want war. The people want peace. The people want prosperity.
I like what you're saying about the people, because it is said, we the people, we the people, for the people, and by the people. So what you're saying is we have to look at everyone as, quote, people, but it's the people that has to make the positive changes and not get caught up with the politics, so to speak. But I'm totally in agreement. It's so hard to maneuver through a lot of this when you see people dealing with the ICE issue, the war, people killing young girls in the school. We have the Epstein and child trafficking. It is so much to wrap our brains around. And then we know we have in public office a convicted felon, and yet we're told that a felon can't vote, but yet a mail-in vote went in by this person, but yet we have other people that don't have a right to vote. It makes no sense. That's what people are trying to deal with, but I think we can all go nuts trying to deal with all that. I like what you're doing at the Quality Life Center. I like the fact that we always say I believe in this philosophy, and actually I learned this from my family in a song. It was tomorrow belonged to the children, but the children belong to us all. And that's where your focus is, and that's where my focus will always be. I come from education, working pre-K to 12 and the university level, because I do know education is a key, and you can learn so much. And I'm not into trying to say we can't teach certain things. We can't. It's all about history. I I know we have certain months designated for certain cultural groups of history, but to me, everything's American history. Everything. We have to learn about everybody, you know. And just like I learned a lot listening to you a few seconds ago, sharing your quick story about you coming from Harlem and then in Tennessee. And as you were mapping that out, my mind was visualizing, the Smokies, and visualizing John Claude in the Promised Land in Harlem, and Irene Cara when you talk about no, she was no uh, Latino, Rose is black in Spanish Harlem, and all that stuff ran through my mind as I heard you talk. And that's what needs to be done. We can't take away telling those stories. That's how we're going to help people learn. I tell you, I think we can go on forever.
I think so. I'll tell you a quick story that came to my mind after you said that.
Okay, then.
In Tennessee, I was working at one point installing satellites, and I did a lot of work at Lookout Mountain, the mountain from and I experienced racism in a different way for the first time in Tennessee. A much more, I grew up north. I didn't see it as blatant, but in Tennessee, I had a lot of experience. People rejected me, not let me go in their house, and called so that they send another technician. Went down a wrong driveway and was threatened they were going to kill me if my explicit, don't get out. Like a lot of crazy experiences from there.
My goodness. I want to hear some of those stories. Would you be willing to be kind of like a long time guest, come back and forth? Would you like to do that?
Of course, Doctor. It'd be an honor, Dr. Staples. I love to hear your stories, and I see this almost as a way of us creating our own stories, because look, there's still work to do. It's the era of reclamation, and we like-minded. We want to be able to uplift humanity, right? Create a more compassionate humanity. So I definitely be interested in being able to do this again with you.
Yes, and I know Dr. King's statement that, I'll just paraphrase it, America has written a check that's come back insufficient funds. And I think, we need to try to find a way to put some money in the bank,
That's right. That's right.
So I'm gonna let Mr. Ramirez take off and take care of those children. He probably has to go do a bus route or something. And but I just want to thank you so much. And he's gonna come back because you if you listen to him out there, he's got a lot of stuff to say. You know, my cousin Pop Staples used to always say he never liked to say goodbye. He always just say, I'm just gonna say howdy, howdy.
Howdy,
So,
howdy.
yeah, Mr. Ramirez, I thank you for being with us today. I thank you so much for sharing your story with us, especially more about Tennessee too. I want to hear that, you know, and you try and get people legal cable. And so I want to say thank you so much, and God willing, God keep you. And till next time we get together, we're gonna have a time. We're gonna have a time. Okay.
Sounds good.
Peace out, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Peace.